UFC 319, Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev happened earlier tonight, and this is going to be my UFC 319 post-fight for the full card. I'm going to recap every single fight on the card. Khamzat Chimaev becoming your new UFC Undisputed Middleweight Champion by dominating Dricus du Plessis in the main event. We're going to discuss Lerone Murphy potentially stealing a featherweight title shot with a flatline KO of Aaron Pico. We're going to talk about the insane finish in Geoff Neal versus Carlos Prates. But let me start off by saying this. This was an incredible card. I really enjoyed it from start to finish. Man, it was crazy, guys. It really was. To finally be excited for a pay-per-view card, to finally feel like it was worth the money, and then it actually delivering, regardless of what people will say about the main event. But we'll talk about that later in the video. Do me a favor, guys. If you enjoyed these videos, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. Let's jump into the first fight of the night. We have Alibi Idiris versus Joseph Morales. Joseph Morales wins via second-round triangle choke in a dominant fight. Was out-striking him, out-grappling him in the first round. Idiris was actually saved by the bell because Morales latched up a rear naked choke to end the round, and Idiris was saved by the bell. Second round, more of the same. Morales landing on the feet, gets a takedown, ends up in a position on his back where he's looking for a banana split, ends up getting shook off the top, but then he immediately gets not a rear naked choke, immediately starts latching up a triangle choke, and Idiris taps out. Not much to say about this. I mean, Morales looked good. Flyweight needs some fighters, especially when the UFC is getting rid of a guy like Muhammad Mokaev, but I really think actually Morales looks like a real quality fighter. I didn't watch The Ultimate Fighter. Morales now wins The Ultimate Fighter. We still are waiting for that finale for Tough 31 with Chandler and McGregor. But overall, I think Morales looked phenomenal, looked well-rounded, and he gets it done via second round triangle and was never in any real danger in this fight. Next fight on the card, we have Karine Silva versus Dione Barboza. Karine Silva wins via unanimous decision. All three judges had the second and third round for Karine Silva. The commentary was absolutely atrocious for this fight. They were acting like Dione Barboza won this fight very clearly. She did not. Karine Silva won this fight very, very clearly. Second and third, easy. First round, Barboza landed the better shots, got a takedown, was looking for a rear naked choke and armbar to end the round. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Barboza won the first round. Second round was close on the feet, and then Silva was able to take her down, control her for a little bit. I think Barboza worked her way back to the feet, and then Barboza ended up getting a takedown, and then Silva was threw up a triangle from bottom and was throwing elbows from the bottom. And then in the third round, Barboza was exhausted, ate the bigger shots, ended up getting out-grappled a bit on the ground. I believe at one point, Karine Silva had a mounted guillotine that Barboza slipped out of, and then Silva ended up on bottom, throwing up the body triangle, which I thought might cost her the fight, but she was still throwing elbows from the bottom. I don't know how you would give the second and third round to anybody but Dione Barboza, but the commentary team was acting like it was the most brutal robbery they've ever seen in their entire lives. Wasn't the greatest performance by either of them, but I think Karine Silva clearly won 29-28 and looked okay in the fight outside of throwing the body. It really didn't look that great, to be honest. Throwing the body triangle from the bottom in the third round in a close fight could have cost her the fight, but she gets it done over Dione Barboza. Next fight on the card, we have Edson Barboza versus Drakkar Klose. Drakkar Klose wins via unanimous decision. Listen, guys, when Edson Barboza is clinching up against Drakkar Klose, we know he's washed up. And that's what he did, man. That's what he did. First round was close. Barboza was spinning too much. Klose was landing the better shots. Klose mixed in like a couple takedowns in the first round, but wasn't able to find it. Clinched up with him. Barboza was kind of strong in the clinch, but Drakkar was doing well, foot stomping Barboza, and Barboza's foot swelled up like a fucking balloon, as Conor McGregor would say. Second round, Drakkar Klose had Barboza out of there. Caught him with a big right hand up against the fence. Caught him with a second one. Barboza was like out on his feet, but then Drakkar Klose proceeded to just clinch up with him and do nothing, even though he probably could have finished him. He tagged him multiple times in the second round. I think there was a second time where he tagged him pretty good when he's rushing forward, and then he proceeded to clinch up and do nothing after that. Ended up getting reversed too, up against the fence multiple times. Second round I had for Klose. Third round was the only round you could give to Barboza, but I wouldn't even care if you gave it to Klose. Barboza was clinching early. and doing a little bit of damage in the clinch. Also throwing some leg kicks, which he was not mixing in throughout the fight. Klose was still pressuring a bit and landing a bit on the feet, landing the right hand over and over and over again throughout the entire fight. Klose clearly landed the better shots, was tagging Barboza on the feet. Barboza wasn't throwing any real leg kicks outside of like a couple in the third round. And I got to be honest, Barboza's just getting old and slowing down. He's not what he used to be. I picked your card close. The dogs were barking tonight, boys. The dogs were absolutely barking. Drakkar Klose gets it done over, I hate to say it, but a washed-up Edson Barboza. Prime Edson Barboza, you know what he would do to Klose? He would absolutely destroy him. But Barboza got dominated, essentially, in this fight. And Drakkar Klose gets the win. Next fight on the card, we have Chase Hooper versus Alexander Hernandez. Look, Chase Hooper stepped to these waters. Chase Hooper tried to buck up, and I sent Alex Hernandez, my hitman, in to brutally KO Chase Hooper in the first round. This goober. This dude's too busy talking about, man, I'm gooning all training camp, man. I'm a gooner, man. I'm a gooner. Send me to Penn State, man. I'd love to be in the locker room at Penn State, man. Listen, this should have been a layup for Chase Hooper, to be honest. This really should have been a layup. Hernandez is washed. But Chase is landing some shots. He's spinning quite a bit, being kind of predictable. Chase was winning the fight, landing a couple decent shots, landing some oblique kicks, landing some front kicks. Missed quite a few shots, but also went for like 2 takedowns that never really came close. And then at the end of the round, literally at the very end of the round, literally 2 seconds left. You can see it right here, 4:58. Massive straight right from Alex Hernandez. Puts him down badly in the doggy style position. Hernandez follows up with a couple shots. Chase Hooper's just rolling to his back and the referee jumps in. I don't remember which ref it was. Was it Herzog? I don't remember. Either way, it was an early stoppage. Chase Hooper should have been given more time. It maybe wouldn't affect the outcome, but he would have been saved by the bell. There's no reason it should have been stopped. He ate like 2 follow-up shots, and then he rolled to his back to try to survive. I don't think it was the worst stoppage ever, but it was definitely an early stoppage. Alexander Hernandez gets it done. I'll never forget Hernandez talking mad crap to Cowboy Cerrone and then getting beat up by Cowboy Cerrone in one of the most embarrassing fights I've ever seen. But yeah, man, Chase Hooper's winning streak is now ended. And he didn't even get to mix in the grappling at all, which is his biggest strength. And he gets brutally chinned by Alexander Hernandez at UFC 319. Anyway, next fight on the card. Jessica Andrade versus Godinez. Lupi basically dominated her for the first 2 rounds, landing the bigger shots. Andrade was like just walking forward, waiting in the danger, not really having any respect for Lupi striking, throwing big shots, and getting clipped up by Godinez. The last 30 seconds, Andrade got really aggressive in the first round and was able to land some better shots. Second round, Lupi was able to get her down, was able to look for an arm triangle, ended up landing some good shots up against the fence. I think it was like it was Brock Lesnar, Frank Mir style, the TKO from back in the day, I think UFC 100. Second round, Lupi clearly won. Third round, Andrade was crazy aggressive. Lupi was starting to slow down. I think that's why Andrade got super aggressive. And Andrade started landing some big shots, cut her open. Lupi landed a big knee as Andrade was rushing in, but Andrade was just eating big shots and continuing to march forward. I scored the third round for Andrade. And really, I mean, Andrade is just showing up for checks nowadays, but at least he tries to put on entertaining fights. At least she tries to put on entertaining fights. That's basically what it is. She's just trying to put on entertaining fights. She's showing up for a check. Lupi Godinez, I think, looked much improved. She still needs to work on the cardio. She loses the third round in the last fight. She loses the third round in this fight against Jessica Andrade after a good performance, which is a bit of a stain on these performances if she wants to become a legit title contender. Because if you can't go 3 rounds, how are you going to go 5 rounds? Even when you're not going 3 rounds. You're going 3 rounds, but not even at a high pace at all. But Lupi looked good with the counter striking. Andrade just had no respect for her, and that's where she had success in the third round. But Lupi gets it done via unanimous decision. I believe all 3 judges had it 29-28. Next fight on the card. Gerald Meerschaert versus Mikel Oleksiejczuk. Basically, Mikel Oleksiejczuk just absolutely bludgeoned Gerald Meerschaert. Dropped him once, then waved him up. Gerald Meerschaert was like kind of begging him to come down a bit, and then just starts smashing him again on the feet after he gets up. The referee steps in, lets him up, starts smashing him, landed a couple uppercuts. I don't remember the shot that put him down, but he gets put down with a shot. Maybe it was an uppercut. And then Mikel Oleksiejczuk realizes Gerald Meerschaert's hurt so bad, he follows him to the ground and just starts smashing him with brutal ground and pound hammer fist and puts Gerald Meerschaert out. Meerschaert, I knew it was bound to happen, boys. I told you, Meerschaert has taken too much damage over the course of his career. I knew he was bound to get brutally starched out cold by Oleksiejczuk, and that's exactly what happened in this fight. Gets finished brutally in the first round by Oleksiejczuk. Not really much to say. I mean, Gerald Meerschaert, how did he go to war with Reinier de Ridder? Somebody tell me. MMA math doesn't make any sense, guys. He went to war with Reinier de Ridder, potentially even beating him on the scorecards if he doesn't get finished in the third round. Insane, absolutely insane. And look how washed he looks against a guy like Oleksiejczuk, who's decent. Don't get me wrong, who's decent. But either way, Oleksiejczuk gets it done. First round KO. Next fight on the card, the featured prelim. We have Baysangur Susurkaev versus Eric Nolan. Eric Nolan showed up on short notice and made this a fight. He was winning early. Susurkaev was able to get a takedown and some okay ground and pound. But Nolan was able to get back up, slammed him down again, and then he ends up getting up. And it was like the first half of the round, Nolan was winning on the feet. Second half of the round, Susurkaev was mixing the grappling. Then Nolan gets back to his feet. And then late, Nolan rocks him badly, hurts him badly. I think it was like a right hand that landed. And then almost finishes him. Or was it a head kick? I'm trying to remember what snuck through. Sorry, guys. I'm very, very tired right now. But yeah, hurt him bad. Susurkaev barely survived. Was basically saved by the bell. Was at the end of the first round, Nolan was smashing him up against the fence. Had there been 10 more seconds, probably would have been a first round TKO for Eric Nolan. Second round, Susurkaev inside leg kicks. Nolan starts grabbing at the knee. I thought this was a low fight IQ move for Susurkaev. Immediately clinches him and takes him down. Clinches up with him, and then Nolan like rolls for a leg, and then Susurkaev follows him to the ground. Like, why wouldn't you just leave him standing if he literally can't even walk anymore? And then basically after that, he was done. The leg was injured. Apparently, he says he blew out his knee to Joe Rogan. He ends up giving up his back, getting flattened out, eats some back shots, and then gives up the rear naked choke. I can tell the UFC and the Dana White propaganda machine desperately wants to get behind Susurkaev, which I guess it's kind of earned considering, on Dana White's Contender Series, and now he's taking this on 4 days' notice, and Dana White loves this type of behavior. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what a win over Eric Nolan really means. Eric Nolan's actually a welterweight. Susurkaev, I guess, is going to stick around at middleweight. But yeah, I don't know what this really means on short notice, but it was a way to give Susurkaev some publicity on a massive card as a friend of Chimaev, putting him in the feature prelim spot, and he went out there and put on an exciting fight. One thing I didn't like is he was kind of taunting and smiling a bit while he's getting tagged on the feet by Eric Nolan. But I think he realizes he has to get better, and he's able to go out there in that second round and get it done against Eric Nolan via rear naked choke. Next fight on the card, opening up the pay-per-view main card, boys. We're already here. Tim Elliott versus Kai Asakura. Tim Elliott has a funky style. First round, I thought he lost. Thought Kai landed the better shots, but not by much, man. Not by much at all. It really just wasn't a great performance by either guy. I mean, I know Tim Elliott was able to get it done, but in the first round, Tim Elliott was hard to track down, wasn't landing a whole lot himself. Late, Tim Elliott was able to get a takedown, but really wasn't able to do anything with it. Second round, Tim Elliott gets a takedown. Kai Asakura is able to scramble back up, but then he gets taken down again, and then basically just gives up the guillotine. And it was a mounted guillotine. And really, like, he had his hands in here where he could kind of try to fight the hands of Tim Elliott. And instead of keeping him here to try to fight, he just put his hands out and around and, like, stuck his hands up in the air like, okay, I'm done. And then finally just tapped out. Kai Asakura is the guy we're signing to bring in to fight for a title when we had a guy like Makayev. For him to go out there and get finished by old-ass Tim Elliott off a long layoff is a real bad look. It is a really bad look. But Tim Elliott, very tricky style, very herky-jerky, hard to track down, hard to hit. And he goes out there, and it reminded me of Joseph Benavidez finishing Tim Elliott back in the day, where he finished him via mounted guillotine. Tim Elliott had a tap with his feet. UFC 172, matter of fact, off the top of my head there. But yeah, Tim Elliott gets it done. Fraud checks Kai Asakura, who's now 0-2 in the UFC, and appears like he has absolutely no grappling whatsoever. And Tim Elliott gets it done. Next fight on the card, we have Jarrett Cannonier versus Michael Venom Page. This might be a hot take. This was a trash fight. I actually enjoyed watching it, but it was a trash fight. Like the tension of MVP, the way he moves in and out, but he barely did anything, man. I mean, I don't even think these numbers are correct. 36 total strikes for MVP. I don't buy it. I don't buy that at all. But anyway, basically first and second round, MVP was able to drop Cannonier with a couple combinations. And essentially that was it. I mean, that he won the 2 rounds by dropping Cannonier. The one right hand, I think it was in the first round, was just insane. I don't know how Cannonier didn't go out from that right hand. It landed so crisp, but he was kind of leaning away a little bit. Second round, I think it was a jab, then a right hand, and then like Cannonier like rolled over and got right back up. Jarrett was never really even hurt badly. Like he wasn't wobbled, like he was able to recover rather quickly. Second round, Cannonier actually got a takedown, but MVP was able to scramble right back up. Third round, MVP trying to get aggressive, slips over his own 2 feet, ends up on bottom, and then Cannonier ends up ends up dominating him for the entirety of the third round. At one point, Cannonier had a mount, but wasn't really able to do much with it. He was able to get a couple elbows out. It was a clear 29-28. MVP is just kind of in shitty fights, man. And I know like it had some tension while we're watching it, but he's just throwing a couple shots and then just not getting hit. And you could see Jarrett Cannonier was getting really frustrated with the movement of MVP. But ultimately, at the end of the day, he gets it done. I thought Jarrett Cannonier was going to be able to use his physicality to go out there and ragdoll MVP. Showed decent takedown defense. On top of that, he looked massive at middleweight. MVP looks like he should be at middleweight. He's talking about maybe going down and fighting Carlos Prates in Brazil now, which that matchup I would absolutely love. But yeah, he gets it done against a Jarrett Cannonier, who I believe is washed up. But I still think it's a decent win for MVP. I mean, beating Jarrett Cannonier at this stage for MVP, I had low expectations for MVP. I thought he was another one of these guys getting overhyped, coming over from Bellator. Even though I know he is one of the best strikers, all I have to say is how good is Ian Machado, Gary? How good is Ian Machado, Gary? But MVP gets it done via unanimous decision. It was a clear 29-28. Next fight on the card. The featured fight on the card, we have Geoff Neal versus Carlos Prates. Man, first round KO for Carlos Prates. Insane spinning back elbow KO. They were both landing early. Geoff Neal was being more aggressive. Prates was kicking the legs, landing some step-in knees. Geoff Neal tried to clinch up at one point, but Carlos Prates was able to kind of, shuck him off a bit. And then Prates just started to find a home for his strikes. And he lands a nasty, it's towards the end of the round. Look, I mean, how crazy is this? 4:59 of the first round. Lands a brutal spinning back elbow, slumps Geoff Neal down, out cold, scary KO, looked like he was dead. And then he starts just leaking out of his head. I don't know how bad it was cut because of the way the blood was running. It looked like a massive cut, but they had to get like gauze on it immediately because his head was bleeding so badly. Then he gets on the mic, tells Dana, I want a bonus. He should have said, give me that Paramount bonus money. Says he wants a bonus, says he wants to fight in Brazil, which I believe is in October or November. Dana White apparently phoned the truck, who then told Joe Rogan that he's getting the bonus and he's going to get a fight in Brazil. He calls out Leon Edwards. I like that matchup. I don't think Leon Edwards is going to take that fight. Leon Edwards is kind of picky and also very inactive. So I don't know if he's going to get that fight. Would love to see that matchup. I would love to see Prates versus MVP. Matter of fact, I think that would be a banger. I would like to see Prates beat up Colby Covington. Colby Covington's probably retired. But this was a quality win. Geoff Neal is no easy win at welterweight by any means. No easy win at welterweight. And Carlos Prates went out there and literally brutalized him with a spinning back elbow KO. Insanity. Again, I'll pose the question again. And I know people are going to say, Joey, stop saying that. How good is Ian Machado, Gary, man? How good is Ian Machado, Gary? But yeah, Prates with a highlight reel KO on the main card. And what's crazy is it wasn't the only one on the main card like this. Next fight on the card, or the co-main events, we have Lerone Murphy versus Aaron Pico. I told you guys, we have these Bellator bums, man. I don't think Pico's an actual bum, but what happens is these dudes come over from Bellator. They have some name value, And all the UFC fans want to act like, yeah, man, I'm hardcore. I know about Pico. He's going to come into the UFC and do damage. Lerone Murphy slumped him out cold with a spinning back elbow. Back-to-back spinning back elbow KOs on the main card of UFC 319. Insane. Now, I do think Pico is a decent fighter. I actually was impressed with his performance at UFC 319. Did much better than I expected. He came out aggressive, started landing body shots. Was able to get a takedown at one point, but Murphy was looking for a ninja choke, and that's really why he was able to get the takedown. Pico was being very aggressive, had Murphy pushed up against the fence. I think this was before the takedown, actually. And Murphy landed a nasty elbow, like just a step-in elbow while he was backed up against the fence. And then I think Pico shot the takedown then, was able to get it, and Murphy was looking for a guillotine. But then Murphy scrambled right back up, wasn't controlled for any period of time. Pico being aggressive again, walking forward, and then eats a knee to the chest. I don't think they ever showed the replay on that. I think it landed to the chest. At least that's what the commentary said. I thought maybe it could have landed to the head. Pico being very aggressive, trying to walk him down. I think he might have got another takedown after that knee to the chest, but Murphy scrambled right back up, and Pico was on the gas. Pico was landing good body shots. Pico was landing good leg kicks, and then he got over aggressive and walked in to a nasty spinning back elbow that slumped him out cold, boys. It was absolutely insane. Flatlined Aaron Pico. And, I mean, these dudes like Bo Nickel and Chael Sonnen and, all the NCAA wrestling guys, Daniel Cormier, I'm tired of them hyping up these guys. Like, oh, man, they wrestled in NCAA, so they must be elite as hell. I think Pico's probably better than I was giving him credit for going into this fight, considering he fought nothing but bums in Bellator and lost to some of them. But you get thrown into the deep end of the UFC against a guy like Lerone Murphy, and you get slumped. Murphy came in on short notice. I think Movsar would have beat Pico. There was no doubt, based on the tone the commentary team was taking, that they were trying to push Pico for a title shot. Murphy now lands this spinning back elbow, potentially steals a title shot from Movsar. And I think essentially this co-main event was, how can we skip over Movsar Evloev, even though he deserves a title shot against Alexander Volkanovski? And they got a moment because Murphy went out there and slumped him. And I think Pico was told going into this fight, listen, you put on an exciting performance, we will give you a title shot. They were hyping him up. They were sucking him off. Pico went out there, looked like he was on every PED in the book. I mean, the shape that he was in was insane. I don't want to sit here and glaze a male fighter's body. I know some people out there like doing that, but looked insane shape and was walking him down, landing good body shots, doing well. He's just getting a little bit too aggressive, and probably because he was trying to make it exciting, looking for a title shot, and he probably should have grappled a bit more. But Murphy, not really a finisher, finds that spinning back elbow and slumps Pico. Lands one hammer fist afterwards. But, man, was this one of the most brutal KOs I have seen. It's crazy. Very similar to the Murphy KO as well as the Carlos Prates KO. Both very similar, putting their opponent out cold. And how crazy is that? It was back-to-back. So, two very enjoyable fights. I know it sounds crazy, and I'm not elevating Pico off a loss, but I kind of am. I think I was a little bit lower on Pico than I probably where I needed to be in terms of his overall skill set. But I'm also worried, like, how is he going to bounce back from this brutal KO? He came in, he was buying his own hype. He did the same thing in Bellator, and he came back. He got KO'd in one of his early Bellator fights by a scrub. He was able to come back and still look good. I think the UFC will give him a winnable fight in his next fight. I think they didn't expect Murphy to be able to slump him out cold, and they probably thought Pico was going to win the decision. Pico was a favorite in this fight, which is insane. But he's one of those these bummy NCAA pet projects by the UFC, and the fan base just goes along with the propaganda. But his striking actually looked very impressive. I like the fact that he had his foot on the gas the entirety of the fight, which only lasted a round. And it's unfortunate for him in his UFC debut. He gets KO'd, but I think a lot of these guys, again, they come over from Bellator. You have the hardcores like, yeah, man, you don't know nothing about that Pico. You don't know nothing about Pico, man. He's so damn good. Same song and dance, patchy mix, over and over and over again. You got to act like you're hardcore. You know the guys outside the organization, and most of the time they end up losing to the top guys in the UFC. But I love that they throw them in the deep end. I think this fight made more sense than the Movsar fight. It's unfortunate that they're not going to give Movsar the next title shot because they're like, oh, Murphy from the UK, we love that audience. We already have enough Caucasus region Muslim champions. let's try to pander to the UK audience now. So Murphy's almost definitely getting the next title shot. Movsar is going to have to win a few more fights, at least. I think Movsar beats Murphy, to be honest. So I'm going to continue to call Movsar the uncrowned featherweight champion. Murphy gets it done with a super impressive performance in the co-main event. But also, to be honest, talking about him stealing the title shot, should he really steal the title shot beating an unranked Bellator Aaron Pico who has no good wins on his entire resume? I don't know. I think that should be debatable. So I'm hoping somehow they don't, but I know for a fact they're going to. Anyway, next fight on the card. The main event, Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev. Ooh. Boys. I hate to tell ya I told you so. Khamzat dominated Dricus. Man, Dricus says he's probably going to take me down, but I'll get back up. He didn't try a fucking time to get back up. He sat on his knees, giving up his butt in doggy style position the entirety of the fight. Khamzat took him down like 5 seconds in, got him in the crucifix like 10 seconds in. Didn't do a whole lot of damage in the first round, and it was rinse repeat for every single round. Took him down, dominated him. Fifth round, a little bit of controversy. Took Dricus down, had him in a bad position. Dricus gets to his knees again, stands up for the first time in the entire fight, like turns into him, ends up on top of Chimaev, but then Chimaev reverses when Dricus looks for a guillotine. And then Chimaev looks like he's just going to ride it out in full guard, landing some decent ground and pound. Mark Goddard decides to step in and break him, which is absolutely insane. Steps in and breaks him with like 1:25 left. Chimaev starts landing some leg kicks. Then DDP lands a right hand, pretty much the only good shot the entire fight. Then Khamzat shoots on a takedown. DDP sprawls, and then Khamzat tries to finish the takedown, ends up on bottom in full mount, but Khamzat gives up his back. DDP briefly looks for a neck crank that's just not there, and then Chimaev shakes him off and ends up on top right at the end of the fifth round. To be honest, you know, I was talking about it during my live stream, but I was also talking about it. I did a dedicated breakdown on this fight, like a 25-minute breakdown on this fight. I will link it down in the description. I highly encourage you to go check it out. I go through such a litany of different things. But one thing I said is, like, I thought this was a 50-41. All three judges scored it a 50-44. It should have been 4-10-8s, but I was really thinking about it. Why should du Plessis get 8 points for any of those rounds? He did nothing, man. He sat on his knees the entire fight, just trying to survive. He played the Anthony Smith card without actually getting finished. He curled into a ball and quit for the entirety of the fight. And Khamzat did enough damage. He did decent damage in the third round. But Dricus was good at hiding his head in the crucifix position. I mean, he got crucified 4 or 5 times in this fight. He had no answers for Chimaev. Dricus didn't look like he trained a day in his entire life. He didn't look like he was an MMA fighter. He looked untrained. And granted, he survived, but that's all he did. He brutally grabbed the fence multiple times and cheated in this fight as well. So Chimaev, I know the discreditors, you know, are going to say, oh, man, he's boring, man. He's 15-0, and now he's 3 decisions. And this is the only quote-unquote boring fight. This is the only one you could perceive as boring. I don't know how going out there and dog-walking the defending champion who hasn't lost in the UFC is considered boring, but I guess these are the same people that worship Bryce Mitchell and Sean Strickland and Colby Covington. That's what they do. That's what they do. Goddard should be fired for the stand-ups. He stood him up. Chimaev had his back in the 4th round. They stood him up there, and then in the 5th round, he stands him up with 1:20 left. Mark Goddard was clearly trying to influence this fight and trying to bail out du Plessis, which was an absolute embarrassment to the sport, to be quite honest. But Chimaev prevailed. I already knew this was going to happen. I told you guys. I did a video on Friday. Khamzat Chimaev will run through Dricus du Plessis, and that's exactly what he did. I mean, this was a pathetic performance from Dricus du Plessis. Never even tried to get up. So if you're disappointed with this main event, you're like, man, dang nabbit, brother. Blame du Plessis for never trying to get up. He just sat there on his knees, offering up his butt. It was like he liked having Khamzat mount him. It was like he liked getting back shots from Chimaev. But it is what it is. I told you guys this before. I think more Visser is a one-hit wonder, which is Dricus' coach. I think he's a one-hit wonder. I don't think du Plessis will ever touch the belt again unless Chimaev vacates or moves up a weight class or retires. I think this is the Chimaev era. So if you're not happy, if you think this is a nightmare, get used to it. This is the Khamzat Chimaev era. I've seen this coming since 2020. And it's just funny, you know, going in this fight, I told you guys, I saw a lot of lazy ass analysis, a lot of brain dead analysis from people, from fighters. You know, there's compilations of fighters like, yeah, man, Khamzat early or Dricus late, or man, Dricus has just got to weather the early storm. Khamzat doesn't have cardio. I told you guys, he has 5-round cardio. He's proven it time and time again. Oh, but the Gilbert Burns fight. Well, he won the 3rd round. So shut your mouth. He won the 3rd round in an outright war. Khamzat definitely tried to pace himself a little bit in this fight so he didn't gas out. But, man, he was absolutely ragdolling Dricus du Plessis like his little bitch the majority of the fight. I mean, he was ragdolling him with ease, and Dricus had nothing to offer. Never even really tried to do anything, just begged the referee to stand him up. And I don't know anyone in the middleweight division who can beat Chimaev. Dricus had the best chance. I mean, maybe Imavov, I guess. Maybe Fluffy because of his BJJ. I just don't know who's beating Chimaev. And the narratives are put to bed. The no 4th, 5th round cardio for Chimaev, he's going to gas out. Those narratives are dead. I'm sure there'll be other narratives, like probably an EPO narrative that'll probably pop up. But what I do want to talk about real quick, I didn't talk about it in my full breakdown. I forgot about it. How about those geniuses that were like, yeah, man, Dricus needs to shoot a takedown and wrestle Chimaev early, offensively wrestle Chimaev so that we can show him we're not scared of his grappling. We can show him who's boss. We can out-alpha him. Those people saying that, never trust their opinion again. They are the dumbest motherfuckers. I seen a clip of Mighty Mouse at the end of this fight acting like Dricus was still the better fighter. I don't even know how to process that information. But he's probably one of those dudes like, yeah, man, Dricus, shoot a takedown. I told you guys, if Dricus shot a takedown in this fight, he would get humiliated. And he didn't shoot a takedown in this fight, and he still got humiliated. I mean, he got treated like a baby. He looked like he never trained wrestling defense in his entire life. It looked like the only thing he trained was, let me get on my knees. Pop my ass in the air, face down, ass up, and let me just survive here. Let me just take a pounding and survive. I mean, the fact that Chimaev was in the crucifix 30 seconds in is absolutely insane. Now, we didn't get the Chimaev crazy finish like Chimaev is known for, but I think this is more impressive. I think this is the most impressive outcome for Khamzat Chimaev, and I do believe he will be the face of the UFC, and I do believe he's the biggest star in the sport right now. Mark my words, his next fight will be massive. He's already saying he wants to fight in October in Abu Dhabi. So all the people crying about inactivity because he had visa issues that are now resolved, looks like you can continue to live this nightmare because it is the Khamzat Chimaev middleweight era. And I'm really looking forward to it, boys. I'm really looking forward to it. I think Dricus du Plessis started buying into his own hype a little bit. He's like, man, I dominated Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland's talking about he's the only guy that can beat Khamzat. Dude, he doesn't even want to fight Khamzat. Strickland doesn't want to fight Khamzat. And Strickland will get destroyed and probably finished in the 1st round. Khamzat gave Dricus credit afterwards. Like, this is the only guy that would ever call my name. But, man, this was a long time coming for Chimaev. This was really a long time coming for Chimaev. I absolutely loved the performance. I thought it was very impressive. I know people are going to detract from it. Again, he finishes you too early. He finishes Robert Whittaker too early. It's a fluke. His teeth were already broken. You know, he finishes other guys too early. Well, he didn't show his cardio. Now he goes out there and dominates du Plessis for 4 or 5 rounds. Arguably 10-8s him. I mean, Dricus should not get even 8 points for that pitiful performance. He should get like 1 point a round. So I'll score it 50-5. 50-5. Dricus doesn't get 8 points per round. No way. No, he didn't do nothing. He didn't do a damn thing. He landed 1 right hand in the 5th round. That's it. Maybe a leg kick. Chimaev smoked him bad, dominated him bad, dog walked him, had him on a leash, and Dricus didn't do anything. He did not do anything. It was actually quite pitiful. It really was. But Khamzat was just leaps and bounds better in the grappling. DDP didn't look like he wrestled a day in his life. I don't know how people looked at DDP getting out wrestled by the dead body of Derek Brunson and think, yeah, man, he's going to beat Khamzat. We just had the lazy analysis. Man, if DDP can weather that storm, I'm sure he can get it done late against Chimaev, who doesn't have any cardio, even though the 2 fights where he's gone 3 rounds, he's won the 3rd round. So lazy analysis. I told you guys. I told you Khamzat would dominate him. I told you even if it went 5 rounds, I was still confident in Chimaev. And he went out there and proved it. And I think he's one of the biggest stars in the UFC. Anyway, that'll wrap up my UFC 319 recap. I think I went 8-4 overall on the card. So not great, not horrible. I still enjoyed the main event. I know a lot of people are going to complain about it because they want to discredit Khamzat and say he's boring. Meanwhile, they love Bryce. They love Sean. They love Colby. I'm noticing a trend here. Illogical trend here. But yeah, that's it, guys. Let me know what you think. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.